All right, so I think we can get started. This course is a hands-on training. It's putting it all together with custom report types. My name is Brian Bullock. I'm an administrative instructor with Salesforce.com. I'm a certified administrator, certified advanced administrator, working on my developer cert and my consulting cert. I looked around there. Have any of you taken courses from me? I thought I saw a few familiar faces. So I do a lot of the ADM 201, 301 courses out of San Mateo, Toronto, and I've done some private training as well. So if I haven't taught you yet, maybe I'll look forward to teaching you in the future. All right, so this is the safe harbor statement. It's basically the same statement that Mr. Benioff gave earlier. I think we're pretty safe with this curriculum, but if there is any future looking statements, just make sure that you make all your purchase and buying decisions based on existing capabilities and not anything that is future looking. And I won't make any promises, trust me. Okay. All right, so we're going to get you guys logged in. And again, this is where the helpers may need to help you guys get logged in. Now, first of all, again, I mentioned this earlier. If when you sat down at the computer, if it was already logged into a Salesforce org, you need to log out of that org and log in again using these credentials. So you need to log in. Now, if you just pull up IE, if you pull up Explorer, it should take you to the Salesforce login page. When you log in, you're going to log in with the username admin@df09 all together, and then you're going to enter the 3-digit number that should be taped to the top of your monitor. Then .com. The password is password1, okay? All lowercase, no spaces, PASSWORD, and then Roman numeral 1. Okay, no spaces. Yes, and you're waiting on the a laptop number. Okay, so Sophie, somebody right here. And so again, if you're on a laptop, you'll log in with the same login except with the number Sophie gives you. So once you're logged in, and by the way, Brett is my driver up here, so if you hear me refer to Brett, that's who I'm talking to. Brett, if you want to go to the screenshot of the login, just when you log in, you should be logged in, and it should say, okay, admin user at Universal Containers. So if you're not logged in at this point, if you could raise your hand if you're having trouble. And we've got another laptop here, Sophie. One here and one here. While everybody's getting logged in, I'll just, before we get into looking at the agenda, when I teach my 201, ADM 201, and ADM 301 courses, one of the first things I'll do when we go through introductions is I'll ask people, why are you here? Why are you here for training? What do you want to learn? And usually the number one thing people want to learn about are reporting, analytics. And so I think that's why this is such a crowded session. As I've looked around, every session, every hands-on training session that has to do with analytics is full. Everybody wants to learn more about reporting. Just as an FYI, if you go to our community site, there are also a lot of recorded training sessions on analytics. So, just, kind of on your own. If you're looking for more, in addition to our existing courses, 201, 301, If you go to the help and training window, there are recorded sessions in the help and training window on analytics, and on our community site, there are some recorded sessions. There are some of these hands-on training recorded sessions from past Dreamforces as well. So there are a lot of resources out there on analytics, okay, for both admins and for your end users. Okay. Now what we're going to be covering today is not end user functionality. Only an admin or somebody with the appropriate profile permissions can create custom report types. Okay. So is everybody logged in? All right, great. Okay, so we're ready to go, bro. Okay, so here's our agenda. First thing we're going to be covering is the question, what are custom report types? At the end of the session, you should be able to answer that. You should also be able to give the 3 key capabilities of custom report types, and then we'll do 2 exercises at the end. Okay, exercise 1, we'll build custom report types. Exercise 2, we'll build a more advanced custom report type. All right, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. All right, so starting out, the first question is, what are custom report types? I'd actually like to take a step back and ask the question, what are report types? So, Brett, if you could go, and you guys can just sit and watch this. You don't have to follow along on this. But I'm going to have Brett go to the Report tab and click Create a New Custom Report. These are report types. The very first step, and we don't actually even call this a step in the wizard. This is not like step 1 of 6. But this is the first thing you've got to do to create a custom report. It's select your report type. And by selecting your report type, you're choosing what object you want to report on or what relationship you want to report on. And there are different categories based on the objects in Salesforce, whether you want to report on just opportunities or opportunities with products, opportunities with products and schedules, opportunities with. And for your end users, one of the most common mistakes, well, in reporting, the most common mistakes are made on this step and when they go to set up their filter criteria for the report. But the misconception here is an end user will look at this and go, ooh, opportunities with products. I want to report on opportunities with products. So they'll choose that report type. Then they'll call you, the admin, and they'll say, hey, you know what, I'm running this report and something's broken. It's not working. All of my opportunities aren't showing up. Well, the reason why is only the opportunities with products are going to show up using that report type. So again, common mistakes are made here. And you often see this with. That's where you're reporting on the relationship. And when you create custom objects, if we can go into other, if we go into others, if you create a custom object, for example, you create a job application object, a report type is going to be created for that. You don't have to do anything. Those of you who have created custom objects, there's a checkbox when you create a custom object. It says, do you want to be able to report on this? If you check that box, a report type is created. You create a lookup field. On job applications to positions, a report type is going to be created. So a lot of this is done for you. There are report types out of the box. There are standard report types that Salesforce provides for you. You create objects, report type is created. You create lookup fields, report type is created. So why custom report types? We can go back. So what are custom report types? Well, custom report types allow administrators to create unique templates or frameworks for creating reports on their data. And it's usually when you go in to report on your data and there's not a report type available that's going to give you the results you're looking for. You have the flexibility to go in and create your own custom report type. So it gives administrators additional flexibility when creating the reports needed for their organization. Okay. And there are 3 key capabilities of custom report types. The first one, they provide the ability to modify their report wizard user interface. And we're talking about one specific step in the report wizard. When you go into the report wizard and you go to select the columns or to select the fields you want, you can adjust that page. 2, They allow administrators to select the objects and fields that should be related for reporting purposes, so that they give the administrator the ability to go in and choose, I want to report on accounts, with opportunities, with products, with schedules. You get to go in and choose that relationship. And most of the standard report types just go too deep. There's just 2 objects. You can actually include up to 4 objects as long as a relationship exists. And actually, we'll show a way that you could actually report on up to 60 objects per report type. And then 3, I told you that the most common mistake is people say, well, I want to report on opportunities with products. They don't realize that the only opportunities that are going to be in that report are opportunities with products. With custom report types, you can report on the with or the without. So I could report on opportunities with or without products. So it will give them kind of what they intuitively think is going to show up in that report. It will allow them to report on all opportunities. If they have products, they'll be able to report on them. If they don't have products, those opportunities will still be there. So it gives you the ability to report on the with or the without. Okay, we'll break this down a little bit more. We'll go into each one of these. I mentioned with the first one, it allows you to modify the Report Wizard user interface. So you can choose which fields appear in a report. Well, you could remove some of those fields. There might be fields that users just don't really need to report on. They'll never really need to report on it. You've got several hundred fields, and you just may want to remove some of them from that step. So you could just simply remove them. You could reorder fields. Now, by the way, this screenshot at the top here, how many of you are familiar with that page? It's one of my, again, I don't want this to come out bad, but it's one of my least favorite steps in the wizard. When I go to report on opportunities, and I go to select the fields, there's like 18 fields selected by default. And then when I deselect all the fields and I go to choose them, they're not in any alphabetical or discernible order. Well, you could use it with a custom report type. You could go in and adjust those fields in any order you like. You could make sure that they're in alphabetical order. You could choose which ones are chosen by default. I mean, notice with a custom report type, they're listed in alphabetical order. You can choose which fields are selected by default. And you can also rename fields. And the most common reason why people would rename fields, if I potentially might be reporting on accounts and opportunities. Well, created by, it's a field shared by both objects. So if I have created by in my report, I don't know if that's the account was created by this person or the opportunity was created by this person. You could go in and rename that field, account created by, opportunity created by. Because a lot of fields are shared across multiple objects. So it can be a little frustrating in reporting. You don't know which object they're referring to. So you can rename those. Excuse me. You can also create multiple sections. Okay, so you can actually create your own sections. It's very much like adjusting the page layout on normal objects. Okay, so you have some of the same capabilities. Okay. So next, the second thing is it allows you to select the objects and fields related in reports. So you start with the primary object. So I want to report on accounts. I also want to report on accounts with opportunities. And then you can move beyond that. As long as relationships continue to exist, you can report on those relationships. So I want to report on accounts with opportunities, with products, and I could go out to 4 objects total to report on. So as long as the relationships, as long as the lookup fields exist, you can report on that relationship. Now you can also, this shows accounts with opportunities with products. Well, there are potentially other objects or other fields you may want to report on. For example, on accounts, I want to know a little bit more about the account owner. I want to know what region they're in. I want to know what the account owner's title is. I want to know the account owner's email address, maybe their phone number. Well, those fields aren't going to be there because they're not on the account object. But account owner is a lookup field on the account object. We'll show you how you can add what we call add fields related via lookup. It's a lookup to the user object. Well, because that's a lookup, we can go to that account owner And we can add fields to the report so that we can report on the account owner's cell phone, city, country, region, profile, role, title. We can report all that. We can add those fields onto the page layout because there's a lookup on accounts to that object. So by that, you can actually add like up to 60 more objects that will become reportable. All right, and then last, the third reason, and this is very common, maybe the number one reason why people create custom report types, is because they want to report on the with and the without. I want to report on opportunities with products, but if the opportunity doesn't have a product, I still want to report on it. Or I want to report on all accounts. If they have opportunities, I want to report on it, but if they don't have opportunities, I still want those accounts to show up in the report. If I report on opportunities, if I go in and I create a straight opportunity report, I can report on those opportunities. I can report on their parent account. But I can't report on any other accounts that don't have opportunities. I want all accounts. And that's what we're going to do in our exercise. But this often comes up. People want to report on the with or the without. And so they get access to all accounts. If they have opportunities, great, you can report on it. All right, you guys ready to get your hands on this? Try it out? All right, so exercise 1, and you guys do have an exercise guide. So the goal of this exercise is to create a custom report type that joins multiple objects and utilizes the with or without framework. So with this one, we are going to, kind of going back, we're going to adjust that page layout. We're going to adjust the names. We're going to remove fields. And we're also going to report on accounts with or without opportunities. Universal Containers would like to see a report on all accounts, whether or not there's a related opportunity. If there is a related opportunity, they'd like to see the details. So the task, create a new custom report type, and then we're going to go create a report based off of that custom report type. All right. Everybody clear? I'm so used to asking questions, although I don't know that I would expect people in this environment to answer that. I guess everything's going to be a little rhetorical here. Okay, so going to the exercise guide, the first step. Now, by the way, we don't create custom report types from the Reports tab. And the functionality, these permissions to create custom report types are granted to admins. So end users can't do this. So we're going to go into Setup. We're going to go into the Setup menu. If you get this message that there are critical updates, just click No. Or actually, if you click Yes, it's okay. You just don't have to download them. So there's 3 sections in the Setup menu. Personal Setup, App Setup, Admin Setup. We're going into App Setup. And we're going into Create. So expand Create. And click on Report Types. Now there's a splash screen here that kind of shows you what we're creating. We're reporting on objects and their relationships to each other. You can just click Continue. And right now we do not have any custom report types, so we want to create a new custom report type. So click New. Now the primary object is very important. In this, we want to report on accounts with opportunities. So we're going to select accounts here. But if we were going to create a report type with multiple, like 3 or 4 objects, whatever you choose as your primary object, that's going to determine which other objects we could add. If we started with opportunities, we couldn't add accounts. We've got to start at the top level and work from parent to child, parent to child, parent to child. Also, this primary object is going to drive your standard filters on a report. When you go into the step where you select your criteria, at the very top, you have some nice primary filters. My accounts, my team's accounts, all accounts. Or with opportunities like my accounts that are open, my accounts that are closed. The primary object is going to drive those standard filters. And I always tell admins, the more you can keep your end users in those primary filters without having to go in to the advanced filters, the better off they're going to be. Okay. So we're starting with accounts, primary object. For our report type label, This is going to be accounts with or without opportunities. And if you click Tab, that will be the unique name. The description is required. And like I said, oftentimes end users will make a mistake when selecting the report type. You can help them out by typing in a good description. This report shows all accounts. If there is a related opportunity, it also shows the details of that opportunity. And by the way, if you do create a report type that is not a with or without, let them know that it will only show accounts that have opportunities. That will help them. So I'll give everybody just a chance to catch up there. Now we're going to store this in the accounts and contacts category. And we're going to deploy it. But report types are something that you could choose to keep in development. If you keep them in development, only the admin can use this report type. And only the admin can see reports created off of this report type. So one common mistake, an admin will go in, leave it in development, create a report, and tell somebody else, hey, go look at this report I created. I used a new report type. And the other person will say, I can't find the report. Okay? If you leave it in development, not only will the admin will be the only one who will use the report type, but the admin is the only one who can see reports created off of that report type. Okay? But we're going to go ahead and deploy this and go to the next step. And I really like this interface here. We're starting out with our accounts. That's our primary object. And we're going to click to relate another object. When we go to select that object, our choices are only objects that are children of the account. And we're going to select opportunities. And by default, we're going to only report on the with. If we don't touch it, every account must have an opportunity. And of the two diagrams on the right, I actually like the one on the bottom. It helps me understand it better. That's basically saying that in a report, if there is a row with an account, it must have an opportunity. If I choose the second radial button that says accounts may or may not have a related B, that shows you that there may be accounts that don't have opportunities. Particularly when you add 3 and 4 objects, I like that one as an admin. That kind of tells me what the report results are going to look like. So we're going to stop here, but we could continue to add more objects. Okay. So click Save. All right, now the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to adjust the layout. What layout are we going to adjust? Well, I'm going to have Brett click Preview. So just so that, it's okay. Down below you have the option to edit the layout or preview the layout. Well, this is what we're going to adjust. The step in the wizard where you select the fields you want to report on, or you select the columns. Notice that if we don't touch it at all, if we don't make any adjustments, we're going to have a section with account fields, a section with opportunity fields. Those fields are going to be organized alphabetically. But I want to point out a couple of, I can't quite reach it, but I want to point out a couple of fields. Notice, like, for example, created by and created date. Well, that field is in the account section. It's also in the opportunity section. If I wanted to report on those fields, in the report, I wouldn't know if it was the account created by that person or the opportunity created by that person. That's why we're going to go in and we're going to rename some of those fields. So if I report on them, I know specifically which record was created by that person and when, those dates. That's usually the number one reason why you might rename some of these fields. All right. So let's close this and let's click on Edit Layout. And this looks, again, it looks like our old school page layout editor. For those of you who have been around Salesforce long enough, this looks like our old page layout editor. We've got our sections. We've got our buttons at the top to create new sections. We have a legend that tells you whether they're on the page layout or not, whether they're checked by default. We have a kind of a palette that has our account fields. Notice that everything in that box is gray. That means that those fields are all on the layout already. We can adjust it from account fields to opportunity fields. Okay. We can see that account name, for example, is actually not in that opportunity section because it's already up above. It's not necessary. So let's make some adjustments here. The first thing we want to do is we want to rename some of these fields. So in the account section, we're going to go to last modified, and we're going to double click last modified by. And we're going to rename that account last modified by and click OK. Now, when we click OK, at first it looks like nothing happened. Nothing changed. It still says last modified ... But when we hover over it, notice that it's going to display as account last modified by. Okay. So right next to it, we want to go to last modified date. Double click it. It opens up. And we want to change that to account last modified date. And we're going to make the same changes to the respective fields on the opportunity. So we're going to go into opportunity, double click on last modified by, change that to opportunity last modified by. And then we're going to go into last modified date, change that to opportunity last modified date. We get some nice repetition here. We're going to go back up to the account, and we're going to adjust the created by and created date fields. We're going to change those to account created by and account created date. And then we're going to make the same changes on the opportunity created by, opportunity created date. Make sure everybody had a chance to do that. So we've made changes to how these fields are going to be displayed. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove some of these fields. So these fields will not be available. You will not be able to report on these fields. We're going to do that with the last activity. So see the last activity field on the account? We're going to click and drag and pull that over into the palette. And you may need to hover over the palette here until it's outlined in black, and then drop it. And then you can see that it's displayed there. So we're going to pull the last activity off the account, the last activity off of the opportunity. We're going to drag that off and drop it. We're also on the account. We're going to remove the ownership and the employees field. And again, everybody get a feel for that. Make sure you hover, make sure it drops in there. And then on the opportunity, we're going to remove the primary partner and has line item field. And it's not totally the end of the world if you miss a couple of these, removing these. That's okay. So we've renamed fields, we removed fields. What else can you do? Well, you can check fields by default. So on an opportunity, we're going to go to some of these opportunity fields. Most of the time when people report on opportunities, they're going to want the amount. They're going to want to report on the amount. So let's double click on amount and check the checked by default checkbox. And click OK. And let's do the same thing with the close date field. And the stage field. And this is just maybe a little bit of a best practice, but you don't totally want to overdo the check by default. But it is a little bit easier. Most of the time, people are going to want to report on those fields. Again, it'll make it easier for them to run reports. All right, so once you're done, click Save. And we're ready to go run a report using this report type. Okay, there was a couple hands up. Everybody ready to move forward? Okay, so let's go to the Reports tab. So click on the Reports tab, and we're going to create a new custom report. Button top center. Create a new custom report. And notice in this first category, the Account and Contacts category, at the very bottom, we have the report type that we just created, and we have our description. Okay, so let's click Next. We're going to create a summary report. By the way, one of the most common mistakes, and be careful on the CERT exam, report type is what we did in the first step. This is the report format. Okay, so just be careful. We want you to understand what people are asking about. Report type, report format. This is report format. We're going to do summary report. We're not going to do any calculations, no summing, averaging. So we're going to go next. We're going to go to step 3. And we're going to summarize the information by account name. So select account name. And then next. And notice some of the changes that we made. Notice that the account created by, account created date, account last modified by, account last modified date. Notice that those changes have been made. Notice the fields that have been checked by default. So go ahead and we can just leave these checked as is. And click Next. This will be the order of those columns. We'll leave that as is. And then we're going to select the filters. Now, I just want you to notice, because accounts were our primary object, that's why we see my accounts, my team's accounts. Now, I want you to notice that in the date field, because we removed last activity, we will not be able to filter based off that field. Okay, because we removed it, it respects it in the filter. All right, we just want to clear those dates, though. So let's clear the dates from that filter. We just want all accounts. We don't want those filtered in any way. And let's run the report. Okay. Notice we have all of our accounts. If the accounts have opportunities, the opportunity data is displayed. If the account, like Acme Inc., Acme New York, if there are no opportunities, no opportunity data is displayed. Hope everybody was successful. All right, so let's save this report. So we're going to click Save As. For the report name, it's the accounts with or without opportunities. The description's not required, but again, it makes it easier for your end users if you tell them what this report displays, and it shows all accounts and related opportunity details. And we want to save this in unfiled public, so everybody will be able to run this report and save. So those are that's basics. Okay? It's the most common, it's a very common report type that people create. We're going to go into the second exercise. We're going to add a little layer of complexity. We want to create a custom report type that joins multiple objects, utilizes the with or without framework, and includes fields related via lookup. So we're going to add that step. Okay, so the scenario is Universal Containers would like to see reports on all contacts, whether or not there is a related case. So this is a support report. It's going to be run by your support team. And they want to be able to report on all contacts. And if there are cases on those contacts, they want to see them. But if there are no cases, they still want to see that contact data. Also, in viewing the report, they would like to see details about the support analyst, which are stored on the user object. So if you guys just sit tight, I'm going to have Brett go to a case record. Now, this is actually a very common scenario. Notice on the case, there is a case owner field. And this case is actually owned by a queue. There's also a lookup field that's titled Support Analyst. It looks up to the user record. So in this case, the owner of the case might not actually be the person or rep who's actually working that case. We see this. Some of you may have this in your orgs where the account owner may not be the person who's actually really responsible for that account. I've seen this in opportunities. I've seen a lot of scenarios where you have an additional lookup field on a record to the user table to show a related user. Here, we want to be able to report on that support analyst. And we're going to do that by adding fields via this lookup field. So now the first part of this is going to be just like we did before. We're going to create a custom report type, contacts with or without cases. So we're going to go into Setup, App Setup, Create, Report Types. We're going to click Continue. We're going to create a new custom report type. Our primary object is going to be contacts. And our report label is going to be contacts with or without cases. The description, this report shows all contacts. If there is a related case, it also shows the details of that case. And we're not going to store this in the account and contact category. Even though contact is our primary object, we're not going to store it in the account and contact category. We're going to store this in the customer support reports. This is going to be a report that will primarily be run by support reps. And we're going to deploy it. And click Next. So we have contacts as our primary object. We're going to click to relate another object. We're going to relate them to cases. And we're going to choose the with or without option. And again, you guys can, just so that you can see, you guys can click. It's not part of the exercise, but you can click just to show that you could relate other objects. We could go out, and again, if there's no relationship, it won't let you go any further. But again, this is your org, so you guys can explore a little bit. We encourage it. You're not going to break anything. Okay. And if you don't want to add it, just click the X, and it removes it. So we want to report on contacts with or without cases. And then click Save. And we want to make some adjustments to the layout. So we're going to edit the layout. All right. And notice we have a lot of contact fields. We have our case fields. We're going to make some of those same adjustments, okay, that we made before. But we're going to start out by removing some fields. So we're going to remove the last modified by, last modified date, created by, created date, and last activity date off of contacts. Okay, so again, last modified by, last modified date, created by, created date, and last activity field on contacts. Now, why would we remove those fields? Well, if this is a support report, we probably don't care too much who created the contact. Probably not something that we're too concerned about. We're more concerned about the case. So we're just going to remove those fields. We're also going to remove the account name field from cases. Why? Because we already have the account name field on contacts. And now we're going to change the labels on some of these fields. So we're going to change the last modified by and last modified date fields on the cases to case last modified date. And again, the thought might be, why do we need to change the label? We removed those fields from the contact. Why do we need to change the label? Well, they still might not know which object it's referring to. So we want to be clear on that. Okay. So again, we're just changing the last modified by, last modified date to case last modified date. And then we're going to change the created by field on cases to case created by. And again, just to reiterate, this is all to make it easier to read the reports. We're making things easier for our end users. It's admin's #1 job. Although I'm sure you've been told different things what your #1 job is. All right, so then we're on step E. We're going to change the full name field on contacts to contact full name. Okay, so up on contacts, there's a full name field. We want to change that to contact full name. Because we potentially could have 3 names here. We could have the contact's name, the owner name, and the analyst's name. So we're going to change that to contact full name. And then we're going to double click on the status, and we're going to check that by default. So status is going to be checked by default. Priority is going to be checked by default. And support analyst is going to be checked by default. All of that is on the case. Status, priority, and support analyst, all checked by default. Okay. Now we did that the first time. Now we're going to do something new. Over on the right, for fields, change it. Well, just make sure it's on case fields. Okay. And then click Add Fields Related via Lookup. Now notice all of these are lookup fields on the case. There are lookup fields to assets, business hours, case owner, created by, last modified by. These are all lookups. We could add fields off of those other objects that they're looking up to. Well, we want to add fields off of the support analyst, which is the user object. So we're going to click support analyst. These are all user fields that are going to be related to whoever the support analyst field is, the support analyst is. And so we want to check role, title, and support tier. Okay? Role, support tier, title. And click OK. Now notice at the bottom of the section, notice how they're displayed. They're displayed in that section, they're displayed with an icon. Okay, that tells you that those fields are added via related lookup. And when you hover over them, look how they're going to be displayed. Even though it says support tier, it's going to be displayed as cases, support analyst, support tier. These are often good candidates for renaming them. Okay? All right. We're going to do something different. We're actually going to create a new section. So we're going to click Create New Section, and we're going to title this Support Analyst Information. And click OK. And we're going to drag down those 3 fields. But we're also going to drag down Support Analyst, Role, Support Tier, and Title. And then click Save. All right, is everybody ready to go run a report off of this? Okay. Let's go to the Reports tab. We're going to create a new custom report, so click the button to create a new custom report. And remember, this is in our customer support category. And down at the bottom, you'll need to scroll down for it. We have contacts with or without cases. Okay. And then click Next. We're going to use the summary report format. And click Next. We're not going to do any summing, averaging. So we're just going to click Next. And here, we're going to first group by account name, and then by contact, full name. And click Next. Okay. Now notice, here are the fields. We do want to check account name, account name, top left. Status, priority, those are already checked. And then down at the bottom, support analyst role, support tier, and title. And I think subject. Did we get subject on the case? There we go, subject. And then click Next. We're going to leave the column order as is. So click Next. We're going to clear the dates. And run the report. Oh, make sure, I'm sorry. Did that default? I can't have trouble seeing that. All contacts. Make sure it's all contacts. And then run the report. And here, notice that first we have several contacts that don't have any accounts. And then as we scroll down, we have see ABC Labs, the contacts. Bertha Boxer has a case. We see the related information. We see that Noah Larkin is the support analyst. We see his role, his title, and his support tier. And we can save this. We'll go Save As. This is contacts with case details. This shows all contacts and includes case details. And we're going to save this in unfiled public. And save. Because because it's on a different object, it's showing which object it's displayed, or it's showing which object it is on. So it kind of shows almost like the breadcrumbs, almost the path back. So it's taking that field and then showing the path back through the objects, through the lookups. Okay. And we can go forward. We'll, just to learn more about custom report types. So now this shows there's the administrator path, the developer path, the consultant path. We actually do cover custom report types in the administrator path. So it's in the administrator and advanced administrator path. It's also in the developer path. So these are covered in those courses. Again, Lewis is in the back. If you do have questions, he's a training account executive. If you have questions about curriculum, he can answer those questions. We also have a booth in the expo. We've got a campground if you have questions. If I'm not teaching, I'm in there. So if you have questions about our courses, or any of us can answer those questions. Okay? Next steps, again, if you can, in this demo org, in this org that you're using, if you click on the Home tab, in the sidebar, now you may need to uncollapse the sidebar, there is a course survey link. So if you click on that course survey link, it'll take you just a couple minutes. If you could fill that out and give us some feedback. This course is pulling it all together with custom report types. Then you can score that. And then while we're doing that, and again, please get certified. How many of you are certified? All right. Okay, it's good. Maybe about 10%. All right, next year when we do this, when everybody comes back again next year, hope to see about half of you. Now, if there are any questions, we've got a mic floating around somewhere. Okay, it's right here. Do you have any questions about custom report types? Okay, over here. How can you mass delete reports? Probably the easiest way to mass delete reports would be with a data loader. Are you in Enterprise or up? Okay, you can mass delete. What you'll want to do is you'll want to do an export report with a data loader. Okay, you'll want to have some way to determine which reports you want to delete. Okay, then you'll want to maybe filter for those reports. There is under report types. There is under administrative report types. There's a report type to run reports on reports, and you can run reports based on reports that have not been run in the last certain number of days. So you can find out when the last time they were run. So once you get a list of those, you can export those details and use the data loader to mass delete them. Okay.
Is there any way to include default filters on custom report types? So we have a whole bunch of record types for opportunities. So it would be great if we could build a custom report type that pre-selected an opportunity record type.
There's no way to, the only way, you can set up those filters and create that as a report template, and if people run it, it will run it based on those filters. People can always go back in and change them, though. But there's no way to force filters that must be followed. And there's no way to set up a report type or a custom report type on record types. But you can filter and sort by record type. But there's no way to necessarily force it.
On your field layout, when you've created the custom report type, can you get those auto-sorted?
So the
all
question
out of
was,
order, yeah.
Right. So the question was, can you auto-sort them? Well, if it's a custom report type, it will sort them alphabetically. If it's a standard report type, there's no way to go in and adjust the order they're in. Like the normal opportunity report, the only way to take that normal opportunity report and adjust the order is to create a custom report type for that. I'm sorry. Oh, well, by default, they're sorted alphabetically. Okay. Even with the custom report type, by default, they're sorted alphabetically. If you wanted to sort them a different way, you'd have to manually do it.
Okay. Once you write a report, is there a way to go back and see which report type you used on that report?
Excellent question. Particularly for some of the reports that are already in there. No, once you run the report and click Customize, it never takes you back to what report type you selected. And there's also no real way of knowing what report type was used unless you really know your report types and you really know maybe the way that the format was laid out. Like if you know that you had different sections on that, that's the way you may know. But for your end users, there's sometimes no way of knowing what report type was used to create a report. You know what? It does come up in classes quite a bit. You could post an idea on the Idea Exchange, okay? And I'll go and if I find it, I'll go support you on that. I'll go support that. All right. Another question back here.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
One, you said you could nest or create relationships up to like 60-something levels?
Well, you can only add 4 through that normal interface. So I can add 4. But via lookup, I can add fields from up to 60 objects. But I have to do it via lookup.
Okay. And then my second question is on the existing reports, is there any way of narrowing down the fields that are viewable when they create a new report?
Not the out-of-the-box report types, no.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure you can do this, but I need activities on both leads and on accounts.
You need activities on both?
Yes, and I understand there are 2 different tables. And I don't know, do you have some clever way underneath to...
So you want to know activities that are associated with the accounts and activities that are associated with
leads.
Leads, not in the same report type.
Yeah.
Now,
that's what I heard.
Once the activities on the leads, once they're converted into accounts,
right,
those leads or those activities will actually move over.
Right.
But there's no way to necessarily separate them when the activities when they were with the leads and when they're with the accounts.
Yep, that's what I heard. Darn.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
No problem.
Can you take one more?
Yeah.
Hi, is it possible to run reports or have a report type with cases and it's the notes? I saw activities, but how about notes?
Unfortunately, notes are not reportable. And that's what a lot of people would like to do accounts with notes or accounts with or without notes. And they're not, unfortunately. Now, comments, yes, but not the notes. Okay. And, we've got to get out so the next group can come in and get set up. But I'll be out in the hall. If you guys have questions that you still have, I'll be out in the hall and you guys can ask me them then. Oh, and please, if you guys could log out. If you guys could please log out. Sorry, Sophie. If you guys could please log out. And yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.